Chapter 2. Evolutionary Contradictions. Since Charles Darwin and Alfred Wallace discovered the laws of biological evolution, the theory has become widely accepted due to the increasing amount of research and evidence in the fields of biology, geology, and anthropology. The theory is based on the principles of the selection and survival of the fittest. It is important to note that this is a scientific theory and not a subjective evaluation. However, as described in Chapter 1, if evolution were to split into two directions and a portion of humanity were to repeatedly evolve, would the path of re-evolution overlap with the path that was previously taken? If so, at what stage would the overlap occur? What are the reasons for the overlap or lack thereof? And how should human civilization evolve in response? The purpose of the hypotheses and related questions is to demonstrate that many important details of our current understanding of biological evolution remain unconvincingly answered, and that there are still many inconsistencies. Omnivorous and monophagous. Omnivores are often defined as animals that consume a variety of foods and do not rely on a single type of food for survival, although they do not refuse to consume a certain type of food. Some animals have the physiological ability to consume both plant and animal matter, but may only consume one type due to their specific habitat and dietary habits. Some carnivorous or herbivorous animals may consume food outside of their normal dietary habits in certain situations, but this behavior does not necessarily classify them as omnivorous. Omnivore does not refer to the most diverse set of recipes. Certain opportunistic carnivores and herbivores with less selective dietary habits may consume a more diverse diet than certain omnivores. If we expand the definitions of omnivore and monophagy, we can collectively refer to organisms that do not reject any single type of food for nutrition as omnivorous organisms. Those who rely on only one type of food as a source of nutrition can be referred to as monophagous organisms. It is surprising to note that there are two types of organisms in the plant and microbial kingdoms. Omnivorous selection. Omnivores possess a digestive tract that enables them to break down and absorb nutrients effectively, which seemingly increases their chances of survival in environments with food imbalances. The term omnivore often implies greater adaptability to the environment. However, natural selection does not necessarily favor omnivores. Contrary to this implication, the distribution of species is not skewed in favor of omnivores due to any allelic advantage. Carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores have each evolved within the ecological food chain in parallel. Given the apparent adaptability of omnivores, why hasn't natural selection resulted in a higher prevalence of omnivorous species? Why must the selection for omnivores break hierarchical boundaries? Are human beings omnivores, herbivores, or carnivores? Questions like these remain unresolved. At times when I sit at a table surrounded by mouth-watering dishes, I wonder why humans consume such a diverse combination of meat and vegetarian foods. The selection, processing, and cooking of food is a more energy-consuming brain and body activity for humans compared to herbivorous and carnivorous animals. Is this because of the temptation of odor molecules in food, or due to the evolution of taste buds? Although individuals from varied ethnic groups, regions, and cultures may have distinct food preferences, the comprehension and knowledge of health have evolved ever since the advent of modern society, leading to a reduction in the consumption of certain foods regarded as unhealthy. From a physiological perspective, the stimulation of food taste leads to an increase in the secretion of dopamine, resulting in a sensation of pleasure. Nevertheless, there is currently no evidence indicating a clear differentiation in terms of people's attitudes toward meat-based and plant-based diets. Modern human habits demonstrate that humans are highly adaptable omnivores, capable of consuming a wide range of organisms in nature, including carnivores, herbivores, fungi, and plants. While humans can resort to carnivory in harsh survival conditions, they typically revert to their omnivorous nature once conditions improve. This adaptability is evident in extreme examples that highlight the resilience of human food habits to change. For instance, the Inuit community, residing in polar and subpolar regions, represents one such example. Due to the extreme cold, only mossy plants could grow there, and it was not possible to generate heat through agriculture. Thus, prior to entering modern civilization, the Inuit relied mostly on wild animals as their source of food, consuming mainly raw meat, organs, and sometimes even carrion. The Inuits' traditional recipes were based solely on various types of meat, such as fish, seals, walruses, whales from the sea, as well as reindeer, muskoxen, polar bears, and some small animals from the land. Raw fish and meat contain several essential nutrients that meet the human body's nutritional requirements. Despite moving to modern civilization, the Inuit rapidly adjusted to the Western diet and became omnivores, similar to people in other regions. An additional example is vegetarianism. Vegetarians advocate refraining from consuming the bodies of animals such as birds, livestock, fish, and shrimp meat due to religious, moral, and health reasons. Instead, they consume plant-based foods such as grains, vegetables, fruits, and their products. While practicing vegetarianism may improve certain aspects of health for vegetarians worldwide, it can also lead to other health problems. Studies have indicated that a long-term vegetarian diet is challenging for most individuals, and the palatability of meat is too difficult to resist. According to a study, 84% of vegetarians return to eating meat. Although Benjamin Franklin previously supported vegetarianism, he later abandoned the practice. In his autobiography, he wrote, "The fragrance of fish fresh out of the frying pan was particularly enticing. After some hesitation between principles and personal interest, I recalled witnessing a fellow dissector extract little fish from inside a fish's belly. This provoked me to think, if they can eat each other, why can't I eat them? Hence, I indulged in eating the fish with great satisfaction." In the plant kingdom, only a select few carnivorous species exist. It is said that there are around 400 to 500 species in the world that capture insects in order to consume the plant's meat. Among these, bottlebrish, hogweed, and civet algae are especially renowned for their carnivorous habits. These plants are commonly referred to as insect-eating or carnivorous plants. However, it is worth noting that these plants do not solely rely on meat for sustenance. In fact, despite their carnivorous nature, they still possess the crucial function of autotrophic photosynthesis. The North American bottlebrish is an insect-eating plant that evolved a funnel-shaped leaf to trap insects by using nectar secreted by its nectaries to attract them. The upper part of the insect trap bottle is attractive with a stained glass effect after exposure to sunlight, which is irresistible to insects, tempting them to enter. However, in late fall, the ability of the plant to trap insects begins to deteriorate, and it starts a long period of vegetation with sword-shaped leaves that do not have the function of catching insects. It shows a benevolent side by protecting the pollinators from being eaten, as the caught insects can also help to pollinate omnivorous plants. Some plants stagger their flowering and feeding cycles. They refrain from using predator traps during the flowering period, as well as at the end of it. In the microscopic world of microorganisms, natural selection has also eliminated the monophagous saints, including a bacterium called Sphingobium pentachlorophenol. Despite our human concerns about the toxicity of PCP, Sphingomonas pentachlorophenol ingests it willingly and thrives on it. PCP is the sole source of energy for Sphingomonas pentachlorophenol. In the feeding arena, a one-trick pony is not viable. Another type of omnivorous bacteria, Bacterivorous, resembles phages but is in fact bacterial and prefers a wide range of bacteria. In the parasitic stage, their predatory behavior could be dubbed the cheetah of the microbial world. When they approach their prey, such as E. coli, Shigella, and other gram-negative bacteria, they hit the host cells violently and at high speed with the non-flagellated end directly attached to the host cell wall. The bacterium produces a mechanical drilling effect at over 100 rotations per minute and subsequently contracts, entering the periplasmic space of the host cell. The entire process only takes a few seconds. Behind the omnivorous. In contrast to Inuit or vegetarians, the vast majority of humans compete with both carnivores and herbivores for food. Humans and apes are omnivores, while gorillas are herbivores among primates. Similar differentiation can be observed among other animals, plants, and microorganisms. There is always a subset of organisms that migrate among different food sources to acquire unique survival space at various levels of the food chain. To understand the natural selection that leads to the differentiation of food habits, scientists have extensively explored and analyzed the subject from multiple perspectives, such as anatomy, evolutionary history, molecular biology, and evolutionary molecular science. Nevertheless, certain aspects remain unknown, highly controversial, or slightly contradictory. For instance, is this differentiation caused by genetic variation, or is it a result of established feeding habits and preferences? Does the cause of differentiation relate to metabolism, and if yes, where do these metabolic differences manifest? What influence does the external environment have on differentiation? Upon anatomical comparison of physical characteristics observed in carnivores, herbivores, and humans, it appears that many human physical traits are inherited from primates. This can be observed in three ways. Firstly, all carnivores have jaws that can only open and close vertically, and lack molars, as these teeth are unnecessary for grinding plants. Humans, on the other hand, can open and close their jaws from side to side, which is a characteristic of herbivores. Secondly, compared to carnivores whose intestines are only about 3 times the length of their body, the human intestine is about 10 to 12 times the length of the body. Additionally, carnivores possess highly acidic stomachs, which facilitates quick digestion and excretion of meat from the body. The human intestine is long and convoluted, lined with multiple villi, which provide enough time to extract and break down nutrients from plants efficiently. Human saliva is alkaline and contains amylase, which helps in breaking down complex sugars present in plants. Carnivorous animals have acidic saliva without amylase, which suggests that humans are less equipped to consume meat. Humans are physiologically closer to herbivores than carnivores. However, the reason why we evolved into the most omnivorous of omnivores is still unclear. Some people suggest that the discovery and use of fire changed human habits and genes. However, the use of fire only reduced the time for humans to gather, chew, and digest food, and increased the diversity of food, nutrient intake, and utilization. It did not necessarily change the genetic preferences of human beings in terms of meat and vegetarian diets. Did humans become omnivorous before or after discovering the benefits of cooking with fire while gathering food? This question remains unanswered. The evolution of monkeys into picky predators, despite being omnivorous primates, suggests that there is no direct correlation between fire and human omnivora. It is a common fact that almost no animals in the world eat only animal foods or only plant foods, with the occasional non-staple food. Therefore, if an animal eats both types of food, it is considered an omnivore, and there are no animals that are not omnivores. A true omnivore is an organism that requires both animal and plant foods to maintain optimal vitality. In the case of a starving lion, one may wonder why it wouldn't attempt to consume plant matter before succumbing to starvation. However, human beings have been on an evolutionary path for 250,000 years, constantly experimenting with various edible items in nature, even at the risk of poisoning. While hunger may partially explain this behavior, it is likely not the sole factor. According to most scientists, omnivores developed as a response to harsh environmental circumstances. Certain monophagous organisms tend to alter their eating habits to include new food sources during exceptional situations. Another question arises: why must selection pressure alter genes if genes can remain unchanged, and organisms can instead expand their dietary options to survive? Antibiotics have only been in large-scale use for a few decades by humans. Some bacteria have been found by researchers at the University of Washington School of Medicine and other institutions to be both resistant to and capable of feeding on antibiotics. The researchers discovered 3 sets of genes within 4 soil bacteria species that could consume penicillin and perform a vital function in altering their food, which indicates that there is a connection between genetic variation and the range of food sources available. What was the reason behind the first generation of bacteria that could consume antibiotics, passing on a novel genome to their descendants? The ability to synthesize molecules in omnivores and specialist feeders appears to be linked to the enzymatic activity of the organism at the molecular chemistry level of metabolism. The occurrence of all necessary chemical reactions in metabolism seems to chiefly rely on the encoding, by the genome, of catalytic enzymes that are required for each step. As an example, a Sphingobacterium pentachlorophenol can convert PCP into glucose, making it easier to digest. This is achieved through a 4-step reaction, effectively turning PCP into its own carbon source. Similar mechanisms have been observed in the human body. The presence of catalytic enzymes in our bodies enables us to safely and effectively consume certain plants, such as those containing aspirin and salicylic acid, which are toxic to other animals.